One of the laws of the universe is that as sure as the sun will rise and gravity will, well, gravitate, Sega will always be offering up their classic Mega Drive games for sale, and here we are once again. I do find it odd that they seem to only focus on their glory days rather than offering games before and after that generation, but 50 classic games in one package? I will take it. We'll see how this one has turned out on the Switch. Now I know this one is a little later than we usually do reviews, but I especially wanted to tackle this one personally, and when Sega offer a code, you can't say no really, can you? And in that regard, be sure to click that subscribe button to become part of the SwitchWatch community. So like the SNK Anniversary Collection that I reviewed recently, this is going to be a slightly different review due to its format as a compilation. We can't really talk about individual sections because of its nature, so let's just delve deep into this one and see how it goes. With over 50, yes, a massive 50 games in the box, this collection already has a very enticing selling point. As a kid who grew up with Nintendo, rather unusual for the UK, my time with the Mega Drive was limited to once in a blue moon visits to my cousin's house, so the thought of being able to catch up with what the system had to offer had me rubbing my hands. Sure, I'd played many of the games thanks to the Virtual Console as well as the other compilations, but this time on the Switch, I would be sure to actually give decent attention to them this time around. Many of them in the package are absolute classics as you would expect from the first party offerings. I'm obviously not going to review every single game in here because I'm not mental, just going to go over some of the highlights. For me, the shining stars of the package are the two series that I've always been intrigued about but never actually gave a shot before. The Shining Force and Phantasy Star series are pretty much worth the package alone. The Shining Force series was Sega's answers to Nintendo's Fire Emblem's offering with turn-based strategy role-playing. The battle system looks fantastic and I think they provide an interesting story to go along with it. They are meaty games and I can't wait to get stuck into them more. Phantasy Star also has me drooling at the thought of playing through 2 to 4, as they were certainly games that feel like a series that were fated to cross my path growing up, but never did. The love at first sight that never happened. Featuring a sci-fi RPG with amazing 80s Japanese anime character design that really should have had a major influence on me, but it was never to be. Again, these are three massive games that may not have aged entirely well in some regards, but I will 100% be making my way through. Everyone knows about Sonic, of course, but I feel fewer people will be aware of Ristar. It's an interesting platformer that feels like an early Klonoa game mixed with the slightly more slow-paced Rayman games if they were made by the same people as Sonic. I know it's not technically, but it really has that similar aesthetic as the Blue Blur. You grab your enemies to bash them and grab onto poles to pull yourself up or swing around. It's really interesting and fun. It just bleeds the Mega Drive with its style. Gunstar Heroes for me was to the Mega Drive as Contra was to the NES, an all-action run-and-gun with boss battle after boss battle as you take down waves of enemies with a really cool weapon mixing system. It's a great game that even holds up to this day. You've got your classic beat-em-ups in the Golden Axe and Streets of Rage trilogies that will satisfy couch co-op fans. Not my preferred genre, but they're certainly hitting a sweet spot for a lot of people out there. Beyond Oasis is an interesting game. In a similar vein to Legend of Zelda, it looks fantastic for the time and system, and even though it's a little rough around the edges, had me gripped enough to play more after this review. It's not all hits though. Space Harrier 2 just isn't good, and in a similar style of gameplay, Galaxy Force 2 and Super Thunderblade don't play well either. Space Harrier 2 is poor compared to the arcade original, as is Galaxy Force 2, which is much better played on the 3DS. Altered Beast has always been terrible, Fatal Labyrinth is kind of dull, as are many of the early Mega Drive dungeon crawlers, but then you have the Shinobi games and everything is right in the world. I think the ratio of good games to filler games is on the whole pretty impressive. It's a shame there are no third-party entrants, as I'm sure Capcom and Konami would have been happy enough to get involved in the same way as they were with the NES and SNES Mini. Castlevania Bloodlines or Mega Man The Wily Wars would have been welcome additions due to their lack of circulation these days. 20 of the games are available to play online with other people either cooperatively or competitively. It's an odd setup. You basically have to select which games you don't want to play online and then click search for a game. You'll then be randomly put with people in different games. It's very odd, and I'm sure it's to ensure that games can be actually found in what would otherwise be a very diluted field. I found my connection to be very iffy, but I'm putting that down to my location in China. Always makes online play a bit of a minefield for me. Either way, I wasn't impressed with the online stuff, to be honest. Not that I would use it much anyways, but I'm sure many people out there would. I couldn't find any option to play with friends on my Switch list. Another iffy integration is of the single Joy-Con. I don't expect every feature to be available while playing single Joy-Con, but I can't work out why they thought it would be a good idea to take away the function of switching games. This makes things a bit of a faff and I'm sure is unnecessary. I could not find any options to remap buttons, which I found rather a misstep. The overall presentation is okay, I suppose, but after coming off SNK's 40th anniversary collection, I feel I've been spoiled, and this Mega Drive collection just pales in comparison. The nostalgia fuel of having the menu system to be some kid's bedroom is a nice idea, but it kind of looks cheap, to be honest, especially in comparison to the slick professional SNK collection. There are some nice options, but nothing too interesting that we haven't seen before. There is border art available, but only a select few instead of unique art for each game, which I would have preferred, and I don't think it would have been too difficult or time consuming to implement. There is a rewind feature plus a fast forward button. If you mess up or if the game goes all retro difficult on you, you can rewind yourself to safety. If you're not a fan of stories or if processes take too long, like maybe a battle system is a little slow, you can fast forward and make your experience slightly more brief. It's a feature that I didn't think I would need, but now I think about it, it could be really useful, especially for grinding in RPGs. The lack of any sort of museum section with details on the game is a missed opportunity. Again, sorry to keep talking about how much love and attention went into SNK's 40th anniversary collection, but this just pales in comparison. I would have loved a little blurb on the history of many of these games, some artwork, whether official or concept, maybe manuals, advertisements, and a music player. If these were included in this collection, it would be totally next level stuff, but it's just not here, and it feels really bare bones in my opinion. You've got the games, but nothing much around the games, you know? Hopefully they can take this on board and produce something more loving for their next collection of a different console of theirs. Speaking of which, what's your favourite Sega console? And which one would you like to see a collection of? In the top right hand corner I've put a poll asking you that very question. Master System, Mega Drive, Saturn, Dreamcast, or maybe one of the SG-1000s if you're hipster. Let us know which collection you would like done. On the eShop, this is priced at $29.99 and £29.99, which I think is really good value aside from the obvious discrepancy between the two regions. While £30 is still good value, it's not equal to the American price. In reality, it should be about $25. Still, when you've got a dozen classic games, a dozen great games, a dozen decent games, and some filler, you can't really complain. It's worth it just for Phantasy Star games alone, in my opinion. While the presentation is cheap, at the end of the day, it might be the best compilation of games available on the Switch. And yes, I'm including the NES games available for the online subscribers. There is a physical copy available, and if you want to buy that for yourself or maybe as a Christmas present for one of your loved ones, then consider buying it through our Amazon shop in the link below. If you buy it through there, then that helps us out so much, but it's at no extra cost to you, so please consider that. Before we get into my final thoughts, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more Switch reviews and content. We usually have reviews out in time for release date, but this is a rare exception for me. Overall, the Sega Mega Drive Classics is a fine collection of many retro games for an affordable price. The effort that's gone into it is a little on the bare bones side though. There needed to be a little bit more love and care gone into what is a wonderful era of gaming for many. No history, no artwork, no music, just an unimpressive menu system. After playing SNK Anniversary Collection, I'm holding that as a gold standard for collections, even if the game collection there was not as good as this one. It's a shame it didn't have more love put into it, but for a solid price and a solid collection of games, really pull it up to an 8 out of 10. Let's just hope that Sega can show more love next time. If you want to see how a collection should be done, head over to watch my review of the SNK compilation. While the games may not be as good, the presentation is just absolutely on point. So I'll see you guys over there if you haven't seen it already. Take care, guys.